Hello again, and welcome to another Creative Talk Online. My guest today is someone who has a really wide background in the arts. He started off in fine art, worked his way through writing, producing, directing, and now finds himself managing theatre. Please welcome today, Geoff Allen. Hello, Geoff. How are you?
Oh, kia ora, Mags. Tino pai, tēnei rā. I'm fine today, thank you.
Kia ora. I will practice my Maori a little bit. So, Geoff, tell us, how did you get started in the arts?
Well, I was painting and drawing from a very young age. I got involved in school theatre, and I post that I got into Elam School of Fine Arts. But at the same time, as far as the acting side goes, I was very keen on a girl called Louise from high school. It's all about girls. Everything is always about, so she was doing acting classes with Charmaine Hare and Ponsonby, and I went along to these classes, but ended up developing more of a friendship with Charmaine than with this girl who wasn't really into me, and then just took off with the acting more at the New Independent Theatre. And back in those days, there were three theatres in Upper Queen Street. There was the New Independent, which was a community one. There was the Mercury Theatre, and there was Theatre Corporate. And there was a lot of going in between those theatres. When I was 18, I auditioned for the Mercury Theatre, which was a disastrous audition. And I did Henry V, Oh for a Muse of Fire, and totally bombed. So yeah, I was getting involved in theatre there. At the same time, it was supposed to be my first year at Elam as a painter. And I stuffed around so much there, and I was a little bit, argumentative with some of the tutors.
Assertive.
Just a really arrogant 18-year-old dude, really. And I got more into theatre, and I was missing classes. So the art school decided that I had a poor attitude, and I got a D for attitude in my first year. And I was so outraged that they could do this to me that I said, right, I'm not going back. And I started working in factories, and then I got a gig on a film, my first film in '82, which was a film with David Bowie, Ruichi Sakamoto, and Jack Thompson. And that's where we were on an island for 5 weeks, and that's where I met David Bowie, chatted with him a bit, sketched him a little bit. He came to a little exhibition I had on the island and bought a couple of sketches and stuff. And then through the early 80s, did some more TV and film work. I went back to art school. Yeah, I went back to art school. I finished my first year, went into photography with John Thompson because I didn't really get on with any of the painting tutors that well.
Yeah.
Don Binney or Bob Ellis. Don was a sweetie. And I got a chance on a plane flight once to apologize to Don Binney for what I was as a student, and because I was a pain in the ass. And then I met someone. We had a child together, and we moved to Taranaki and lived on the side of the mountain. And then in Taranaki, I got my first job drama teaching at the Taranaki Performing Arts Company, which was an amazing time, and quite near the Govett Brewster Art Gallery. And my father is from Taranaki, so I have roots there.
Yeah.
Taranaki te mongo toko papa, and my waka came into Namutu, into the harbour there, so there's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
Teaching there, and then their relationship split up. We have one child. I met my current wife, Robin, and we moved to Auckland, did more theatre work, film work, Shortland Street, did a lot of work on Hercules back in the day.
Right, yeah.
There's Hercules, get him.
Yeah. I've had a couple of guests in this little online series who've been involved in Hercules, so there is that thread there.
Well, we were up in Auckland, but we moved to Tawa in about 1996 or 7, and I think I started writing down there. I started developing a love for writing. I think it's always been there since I was a kid. When I was 11 at Bruce McLaren Intermediate School out west, my teacher, Miss North, I remember her name. She's probably passed on now, but she said, "Oh, you should be a writer."
Right.
And I always remember that. So as a teacher, the things you say to your students can be quite powerful, you know. I mean, I remember it was a pretty weird story. And then, where were we? Tawa. Oh, yeah. And during that time in Wellington, I got involved with Lord of the Rings and worked a fair bit on Lord of the Rings. But I was doing night shoots at Helm's Deep, which was a really amazing, one of the most amazing experiences of my career was working at Helm's on Lord of the Rings. But during the day, I was going to Whitireia Writing School and doing a year course in writing. And quite often I would be falling asleep at lunchtime because I'd be doing night shoots as an orc or a rohan or whatever. One night on Lord of the Rings, I fought myself. On the first night, I was attacking the gate as an orc. On the second night, I was on the other side of the gate as a rohan, fighting off the very same orc. So that's filmmaking for you.
Oh, yeah.
But that was an amazing experience, and that was the first time I've been directed by Peter Jackson. He was incredible and very calm. And then we came back to Auckland after 2000. Why did we? Oh, that was me. I felt like I wanted to get back into more television work, more acting work in Auckland. We moved to Devonport, which is the first shore connection, and then I began Devonport Drama there, that's next year, it's 20th year of Devonport Drama, and that became one of the, really became a real family thing.
Yeah.
Became quite an iconic thing in Devonport. Hundreds of kids have come through. And I started it because I've been working for a lot of large organizations like Drama Teaching Unit, big ones, and they were kind of like factory organizations where they'd sort of churn these kids through these big shows.
Yeah.
And the kids paid an exorbitant amount of money to get up and get their photo opportunity. And I felt like these are all actors my age. No, I won't go there. But no. And I still work in the business.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a boutique sort of theatre experience for kids where I could write particularly for them. So I used my writing skills. So if I had an autistic kid who couldn't speak, I would write a part for them where they had to honk a horn, like Harpo Marx or whatever.
Yeah.
I could write specifically for children to help encourage them to come out of themselves. So it became more than just a way of making money. It was a way of using your talents, And I think that's a really important thing to talk about in the arts generally. Is we're all about the putea, wakato all the time. It's like, oh, where's the kahe te putea? Where's the money?
Yeah.
Give us the money and then we'll do our art. Why are we doing it? And so that's important, but it's also important as to feel that you are giving back to, you're part of your community, you're giving back to it.
Yeah.
For me, Devonport Drama has been that. Then I started with Gina Timberlake, we started Galatea Theatre, which is an independent theatre group where I would write shows. I started writing shows a lot more.
Right.
We worked in with the Navy and did a show called Sister Anzac, and that was an amazing experience. And the Navy really embraced us, and they still talk about it.
Right.
We were telling a story about the nurses that were at Gallipoli. There were 13 Kiwi nurses at Gallipoli.
Yeah.
And for me, having researched a lot about war, that was immediately the most interesting thing. As soon as I found out there were nurses there on a ship off the coast, that was going to be the story.
Right.
The Navy embraced us. They hosted us. Amanda Rees was amazing as a director, and she toured that show. And we felt during that we were part of the Navy. They gave us badges. They made a book and everything of it. We felt we were serving our country as performers, as artists.
Yeah.
And at the opening night, I met the Admiral of the Navy, Jack Steer, He was a very imposing gentleman, and he said, "Oh, never been to a play before. Had the driver waiting in case I didn't like it. Like Getaway." Then he said, "I had a tear in my eye. Very moving. Would you like a ride on a warship? I can make that happen."
Wow.
And so we're just like independent theatre makers, we just go, "Yes, please. We'd love a ride on a warship. Yes, please." So they took us out on 2 ships, and we sailed around the harbour for a bit, and they took us in some fast boats and things, and we got into wetsuits and so on, and we had that whole experience. It was amazing.
Fantastic.
And through that period, I then became Play Market New Zealand client writer. So I finally got into, after years of trying, and that opened up a lot of doors. And through that, I then I joined the New Zealand Society of Authors. I got a gig as a resident writer at the War Museum doing research for a year, because around about this time, I was getting involved in Māori Pākehā things, kaupapa, and historical stuff. And I've always written historically. So it was at Te Pou Theatre when I was doing Oscar Wilde in the show. They started offering te reo lessons. So I started learning te reo back in 2016. Went to the Wānanga, Te Whare Wānanga o Awa Nuarangi, graduated from there in 2019. And I've sort of, as best I could, tried to contribute something as a Pākehā to that whole story. And it's difficult. It's difficult to find your place, because there aren't many Pākehā who can write a script in te reo. It's kind of new ground, So I wrote a play called Broken String, which was about a funny Cornish couple. We were trying to get the piano out of the Waikato before General Cameron and Grey invaded the Waikato in 1863. And a lot of that, I will write in te reo, and then I'll ask, I got Hemi Kelly from Te Whare Wānanga o Aotearoa. Hemi's great. He would whakatika te reo. And then just before lockdown, Circa Theatre in Wellington were interested in it. Well, I haven't heard anything, I mean, Theatre Now, we were just talking about it today. Theatre Now is like, well, you're probably in the hardest business you could possibly be in during a pandemic.
It's a real how long is a piece of string situation.
And did that, wrote some plays, did all right with those, writing some book. I published a book. That's right. Yes. In 2018, I published a book called The Fairies of Down Under and Other Pākehā Fairy Tales with Mākoro Press in Wellington. And that went well and got good reviews. And that was about, I had this idea for, hang on, I've got it here on the wall. When European settlers sailed down to the bottom of the world, to down under, they took with them tools, seed, livestock, and their hope. They did not take monsters. Those crept aboard, all by themselves. And you can see it's on the there's a poster on the wall over there of it, because I did the art for it. And we had a launch of that, and Mary McCullum, who's recently had a lot of success with Oe, and was amazing. That was my first experience of working with a really good editor, and of being pushed like, you got to write 5 new pages by tomorrow morning, or whatever. And that, I think that's really, as a writer, that's really important, is to that relationship you can have with an editor will just push you that little bit further to produce better work. Did that, did a few more, and then I wrote a few more shows. When I first created Pitt Street Theatre in town, was part of the co-opera of the Pitt Street Methodist Church. They have a theatre space there which was dormant, and we've over 3 years I kicked it off with 3 or 4 shows, and now it was just starting to build up with a lot of independent companies and be a really good alternative to the Maidment Theatre and the Little Maidment, which got knocked down by the barbarians. And so that was just starting to really take off. And, we had a little bit of connection with Tim Bray Theatre Company coming over, and there was going to be some really nice stuff happening there. And of course, everything's just been like, well, we've just had to cancel Macbeth. We're going to do Macbeth there as a first sort of Pitt Street Theatre spring show.
Yeah.
The idea of a spring, that was really hard on everybody. So I worked there for 3 years. I'm still the kairahi of the theatre there. Still very connected with Pitt Street. It's a wonderful place, and it's right in the middle of Kalangahape Road. So you've got, often I'll rock up and there'll be somebody drunk against the door. I have to who's waiting to get into Alcoholics Anonymous. Or there'll be some dudes in the car park shooting up or whatever, or there'll be some drag queens. We've had drag queens doing front of house for us, and it's just it's a bit grungy. It's you never know what you're going to expect. A homeless person might be standing in the middle of the theatre one day, and you got to give them a cup of tea or whatever.
Right.
But man, it feels like you're really alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got a call from the board, from the chairperson of the Siobhan Urick from the Rose Centre, and the current manager, Shannon, had to leave to go back to Australia, and they said, would you like to come and talk about doing that? So I got 5 weeks actually in the office. I've spent 8 weeks in home here as the operations manager of the Rose Centre. I've spent more weeks at home as the manager of the Rose Centre than I have actually in the Rose Centre. But that's really exciting because I know it so well. I've been hiring it for 16 years.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to hopefully just do some good things there. Get a positive vibe. For me, that's really important, is like getting a really good team together, getting a positive vibe going. I've been talking for about 20 minutes and you haven't been able to ask.
No, you haven't. No, I'm interested because I knew a little bit about you, but I didn't know all those things. I didn't know that you were a film actor. And was it Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence with David Bowie that you were in?
Yeah, my first film, And because I was just out of art school, I had all my drawing stuff there.
Yeah.
And David noticed that I was drawing, so he would come over and I was, I didn't say anything intelligent, apart from, I think I said to him, oh, you paint a little bit too, don't you? He's actually a very good painter. But I tended to be always just say this. When I met famous people on sets, I would just say the dumbest things. I think I said to Billy Boyd once, we were working on Lord of the Rings, and I said, you're playing the Hobbit. He's dressed as a Hobbit.
Hey.
And I had a nice connection with Anthony Quinn once, though, on Hercules. Anthony Quinn, he's famous. He played Paul Gauguin in Lust for Life. He played in Viva Zapata. He's just grew up with him. We were getting our makeup done together, and he obviously knew that I was really nervous. I didn't know what to say because you don't want to bother people.
No.
He went over to me and he said, "So, have you seen the monster?" Because there's a minotaur in it. I said, yeah, I've seen the monster. He said, is it scary? I said, oh yeah, it's very scary, Mr. Quinn. Good, and classy guy. He knew that there was, quite often younger actors are incredibly nervous. I left out King Kong. I had a really good time on King Kong. I worked on King Kong for a few days in Auckland, and because they knew me, this is another example of some actors don't like to do extra work, but I think it's really fine, because I was on set there just doing extra work, and what's her name, casting agent Liz Mullins, knew me from Wellington and said, oh, Geoff, we need someone to do this part. So I got pumped up from an extra part to an actual scripted part on set, which was basically really annoying the giant monkey and doing a scene with Jack Black, which was cool.
Right.
And so you've got doing a scene with Jack Black. Andy Serkis is sitting at the bottom of a pole with a microphone. And then up the top of the pole is a tennis ball where the actual head of the, so you've got
the eye line,
the eye line and stuff. So King Kong was fun. And this is the second time I was directed by, got a little bit more direction that time rather than just being in a pack of orcs. And so I don't know, there's other stuff, but
so you've mainly been a screen actor rather than a stage actor.
Oh no, quite the contrary.
Right.
And this is the difficult thing for many young actors now who haven't come up through the theaters or the community theaters. Like I came up through the community theaters.
Yeah.
Is that they kind of really come up and think that they're going to be screen actors. And you hate to break their hearts, but the 80% of the time you're going to be doing stage work.
Yeah.
Because there's more stage work around. And now in Auckland, there are way too many, and generally way too many actors, or people calling themselves actors for the amount of work that's there.
Mm-hmm.
So to get snooty and snobby about doing stage work is I don't know, well, you can, but the thing about theatre work is you can create it.
Yes.
I mean, you can create film work. And I really encourage people to do that too. Don't just sit there waiting for someone to say you're amazing, we want you. Go out and make work.
Yeah.
And for all the young filmmakers around, I've got two sons that are filmmakers. One's currently at South Seas doing the editing course. One's been through the directing course and made movies for quite a while. So I've worked a lot in theatre, mainly in theatre. Television, whatever, short in the street 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Because every 2 or 3 years you can come back as a different character.
Yes, I've met quite a few people who've been in Shortland Street 2 or 3 times as various things. So yeah, that's been one of my highlights of living here in New Zealand is people I've worked with have then ended up on my telly. So I get quite excited about that. Still a bit of a fangirl.
So where are you from? Thanks.
So I'm originally from Lancashire.
Lancashire. Oh, yeah. Right. Okay.
And I have totally no background in drama. I just fell into it by accident. So yeah, I haven't got a resume working with Peter Jackson and David Bowie. So I'm quite boring really. But no, that's yeah. So what would you prefer? Would you prefer being an actor, being a director, being a writer? Where does your passion really lie?
Well, I think when you're an actor, you're very absorbed into that. And the thing I love about I went and did the last act. It would be in Pardon Me, is Oscar Wilde and Pardon Me, Alan Turing, and we toured that to Wellington. The thing I loved about acting was you just have to turn up and act. You don't have to do the production. And but then I realized that there's heaps of actors. I'm quite good at doing the directing and the production, working with people. I'll focus on that. So I went from that to direct. My first thing I directed was Once on Chunnock Bear, and Michael Smither, the artist, was a friend, was the set designer. I met Morris Shadbolt on that because Morris was a friend of Michael's. Morris came down. That was 1990. 1990 was my first time directing. And I loved that whole, I think because of being a visual artist, I like the whole thing about creating the whole thing.
Yeah.
And quite often, one of my favorite things is everybody goes home and I'll go and do some set work. I'll do some painting or something. And then I'm back in my painting sort of like artistic zone. And I also will do the photography quite a lot because I didn't get on with the painting tutors. I took photography, and then directing, and then to writing. Writing became and is, and here is my writing studio where I am. Built the studio in the garden. Writing is my great love.
Right.
And to create worlds with words. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's certainly very hard to, the road to getting published is incredibly hard. and you can take years. I mean, for
Yeah.
one project, I've submitted it 104 times to different publishers around the world.
Wow.
You've got to be the thing about the arts. It's not for pussies. It's not for wusses. You've got to be an artist. You've got to be tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough because as an actor, you take rejection constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And even now these days, they ring you up. Your agent rings you up 3 months later and tells you you haven't got that job.
Right.
Job you've forgotten about. Thank you very much.
Right.
And writing, there's a lot of rejection. Thank you. You're right. With very interesting style. Right at the moment, we're not taking anything remotely like what you're sending us.
Yeah.
So you have to be pretty tough, and quite often you're working alone. And particularly now, this is sort of leading to the whole COVID thing, isn't it? And in the first lockdown, I remember thinking, "Oh, this is great as a writer because there's no distractions." I mean,
yeah,
it's like I have this little batch on Rangitoto that I go to write. I look after it and maintain it. And so it has a boat shed there where it's very isolated, and it's brilliant for writing. Because one of the most difficult things as a writer is distraction.
Yes.
And I'm one of the worst YouTubers in the world. I am. Oh, there's a piece of chocolate over there. Oh, I'm distracted. It's like, oh, look, there's a bird in the garden. Oh, look, I've got to watch this. I've got to watch this YouTube thing. Terrible. And so that practice of just focusing yourself and giving yourself completely to one thing, that's one of the most important things in any creative process.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to do, particularly when we're at home so much.
Yes.
But I think, do you want me to talk about advice for artists now? We've got to that point?
Oh, no, we've not got to that point yet. No, we can carry on.
Okay.
So
right.
I know
Ask me a question.
I know you've written lots and lots of plays, and some of them have been performed at the Pump House.
Yeah.
So, do you have any particular highlights of being at the Pump House?
Yes. Two. I have two. One was actually inside the main theatre when we were doing, must have been Crimes of the Heart, which is an American play. Wasn't one of mine.
Mm.
And I think it was one of the most perfect days for me in that I went for a swim in the lake. I love swimming. I'm always loved swimming. And I went and got a coffee from the French cafe. And then I went up and sat in the lighting box with my laptop, and I was working on some play or something, or piece or something, I can't remember, in a theatre. In what is the Pump House is my favourite theatre in Auckland. I think it's the most beautiful theatre in Auckland. And I've never made any money there, but I love the theatre. And I was sitting there in a theatre writing after having a swim and having a coffee, and it was amazing. Just this vibe about, this is my life. I'm very happy this is what I love to do. I think the best theatrical experience I had there was when we were doing Women with Swords, and we did it in the amphitheatre outside.
Yes. Yeah.
This was a story about basically, it came from Susie Sampson saying to me when we worked on Pericles at the Summer Shakespeare, she was pleased to get a little bit of sword work, and she said mostly women don't get to do sword fights.
Yeah.
So I wrote this play based on a film called The Last Valley, a Michael Caine film about a group of people arriving in a valley in the middle of the 30 Years' War or something like that. And there was treasure involved and stuff like that. But it was like 6 women going for each other with real swords. And we had a lovely time. It was beautiful. The sun would set. And at that time, it was the last year of my mother's life, and my mother was in the North Shore Hospital across the lake.
Right.
So I would quite often go and visit my mother in the hospital and then come over to the set. And so that whole show is really locked in my memory as being, what was it, 2016. It was the sort of last year of my mother's mother came out of hospital, went into a rest home for a little while. And but yeah, it's got very special memories. And just the working with people like Cat Glass was in that show, Danny Fernandez. The first time I worked with Danny Fernandez, who was Danny was one of my favorite people. You know, he's with Babel Theatre. Kat is just, well, you know, if I could buy her as a daughter, she'd be. She's just beautiful, you know. And then all of the other, Tasha, who I'm working with now. Tasha played the witch in that. She's at the Rose Centre. And all of the other, you know, Emily and everyone, was just a wonderful group of people to work with on something that was a really different piece of theatre.
Yeah.
And I think that I have created quite quirky, what did the Herald say one time? Idiosyncratic. The Herald called me idiosyncratic. And I thought, I'll take that. It's all right.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. Because I've never known how to be anywhere else really than be what you are, which is a little bit offbeat probably. Creating stories that possibly nobody else would have created,
or have a wide range of appeal to lots of different people.
One hopes so, and that's the key to creation, is finding that single thing, which is the universality, the thing that connects with the thing that we can all. I think that in theatre, and I've seen it a few times in my life. I saw it once at Circuit Theatre in Wellington, where everybody, and action was happening on stage. I think it was the Beauty Queen of Lanarn, and something was about to be destroyed on stage, which is hugely vital to these people's lives. And the entire audience is one leant forward and kind of went, no, you know. And that's what you aim to achieve all the time, is that where the audience is so immersed into that world. Because any performance piece, the job of an actor or a performing artist or whatever is to create a world. Yeah. And you're basically, every show is an invitation to an audience, come into our world for a while, live in our world, pass through that fourth wall, through the looking glass into Wonderland. Trust us, because we are trustworthy. Now, if you're not trustworthy, if you fool around and if you're not credible and you haven't done the work, then why the hell should the audience first pay that money, and why should they come into your world? So it's an obligation, it's a contract between you and the audience. We know what we're doing. Come in here, feel safe, you'll experience something, we'll bring you back to your seats, and hopefully you'll go away having had an experience that enriches you in some way. Yeah, that's la-di-da. That's really a really good way of looking at things. Yeah. So we almost headed there earlier, but you've enlightened us even further. So you said the first lockdown was okay, so you thought, I can do some writing. This second lockdown, this second big one, has been challenging for lots of creatives. Do you have any advice for the creatives out there? And you've talked about being resilient. I think I can just I'm very aware that it's been very hard on a lot of people. I think first thing is, like, just be gentle with yourself. Don't give yourself a hard time about, I haven't done much today, or I haven't worked hard, or I haven't produced the next War and Peace or whatever, and I haven't won this award or whatever. I think be gentle with yourself, enjoy things, enjoy life. I'm quite a gardener. I've always maintained with artists that it's very important to keep yourself connected to nature, and is whatever you're feeling. And we all feel in the arts. I know, because I've been in so many different artistic areas, and I've sat there staring at the wall like everybody else, wondering. As soon as you connect, touch a tree, as soon as you put your hands into the ground, as soon as you plant something, you're giving hope. Because this right across from me now is a punnets full of corn that we planted the seeds of. We gather our own seeds, and outside is a garden full of. I have off this shed. I have gutterings that I've made that go into a whole bunch of tanks that I bought off Trade Me. Yeah. So we have our own rainwater that we feed. Plants really like Rainwater. I've got my record player over there. I play them. They quite like Bowie, but they'll do Enya or like anything like that. They just like music. There's play music to sing to your plants, pray to your plants. Karakia mona raku, mona hua whenua o te mara, for your plants in the garden. And get out, have a routine when you get out, when you go for walks, you go and see things, have things to look forward to during the day. Here it's dinner, basically. I put on 7 kilograms while I've been in, like today I got back to 106 kilograms. So I'm trying to get back down. But I name days, like we have meat pie Monday, time for pizza Thursday. Today's Fish Friday.
Right. Very good.
So I so be happy, everybody. It's Fish Friday.
Yeah.
Fish Friday.
We have a similar thing that I've started to write a menu up on the fridge, just so I know what day of the week it is. So they're all melting into each other.
I think I think stay connected to nature is a really important one. Share some love, help somebody out, give a gift to somebody, do it. That whole thing about isn't giving, we receive is so important too. When you give them, pick some of your apples or whatever and give it to the neighbor. I've got a Chinese neighbor next door to me, Li Rong, and we don't speak. I speak 3 phrases in Mandarin. She speaks like 3 words in English, but we sort of share food. And she will mime sawing something, and I'll go over and cut a tree for her, and I do her lawns as well. And then she'll just leave beans by the door, So we have that relationship. But where was it going? I've forgotten. Talking about lockdown. Yes. Well, oh my God, this is hard. Certainly in the theatre business, just going back to the whole managing theatres, I think Pitt Street's okay. We've just closed it down. It's all right. We've got Paul Gittins coming in December with Snowflake. Hopefully that'll be all good. Devonport Drama, I'm still hoping late November we might be able to do our show, Arabian Nights, but we're just hanging in there. The Rose Centre has been really hard. We had a show trapped halfway through. The set's been there, Neville's Island. We've shifted everybody to, theatre is we don't know.
Yeah.
And we still don't know.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get something into 2021, but maybe we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're just the same at the Pump House. We haven't got a crystal ball. I wish we had. Or I wish I had a magic wand to wave.
But the important thing to remember is that these theatres will still be there.
Oh yes.
And back in the day, back in Shakespeare's day, they had the playhouses were closed because of the plague. Yeah. There was a wonderful quote I saw by somebody from that time, an older guy, and he was looking down the street and he said, "It's outrageous. These youths are just gathering together, taking no regard of the restrictions of the city, during the plague." And it was like, nothing changes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think
nothing changes.
I think that's a good note to end on, to know that we are somehow reflecting Shakespeare's times. And just as they got through it, we'll get through it.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Geoff. It's been really lovely talking to you and hearing all about the fantastic things that you've done. I knew you were a talented man, but I didn't realise there was so much to it. And thank you for sharing all that with us and the Friends of Pump House. And we hope to see you there welcome. Again soon.
Much love to the Pump House.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. And kia pai to Mutunawiki. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right.